this video of these guys rolling off raft in a swamp with boonie hats and their faces all painted up, and I was like, man, the Air Force has guys that do that? And they said, well, yeah, and if you want to come try out to see if you can do that, we are doing a physical test tomorrow morning at 5:30, and then if you pass that, there's an orientation where you get to go talk to 10 guys who are on active duty doing this to see if it's something you might want to do. And so I said, well, man, I just, at that point, this was about 50 pounds ago, at that point I was in good shape, and I said, well, man, I just want to find out if I can do this. And so the swim and the run and confidence course, all this type of stuff. So anyway, 244 people show up for this, and 17 of us make it through, and I don't know how I made it through, although I will tell you the story, the part of the story I usually don't tell is I was in the very first swimming group, so I got to sit down while 17 waves of people swam after me, so I got to recover. But anyway, so we get done, and they would say, well, congratulations, you guys are combat control flight 144. And so I said, well, hold on, where's the orientation? And the guy, he goes, what are you talking about? Yeah. And I said, well, the captain back there told us his orientation. So yeah, you can imagine my wife, I had met her in undergrad, and we had gotten secretly married at a little Justice of the Peace ceremony out in Manhattan, so it wouldn't be in the local papers, because we wanted to have a big wedding here. And so you can imagine her surprise when I called her that night, and I said, honey, you know how I was supposed to be home in April? This was in January. Well, it's going to be 18 months, and so, yeah. But I will tell you, though, the first 3 years of marriage, we actually spent 18 nights together, and how young newlyweds fight all the time, we didn't have any of those problems, right? So, but anyway, look, in that job and in the JAG, learned a lot about converting data into intelligence and actual intelligence and the value of it. Then spent some time as a CFO and COO at 2 software companies, 17 years as a faculty member teaching this stuff. And then, yeah, I apparently had bribed the right people, and so won CFO of the Year from the Kansas City Business Journal. But anyway, if this describes you or someone at your office, raise your hand, because I think that's pretty prevalent in today's society, right? And there is too much to do, and a lot of people do it themselves, and a lot of people also don't understand there is, just with the advent of the internet and now smart systems and all the business intelligence tools, it's way more affordable and practical for shops to bring this in-house, so they have all this data at their fingertips. So the problem is they're not exactly sure what they should be analyzing. So how a lot of people start is strategic planning, right? So I know a lot of people in this room do strategic planning, right? Raise your hand if you do strategic planning. Perfect. And I also was telling these guys, I like to call on people because then there's a lot more chance you're going to stay awake if you know I might ask you a question during the presentation. But so basically you come up with some type of a strategic plan, which is maybe 3 to 5 things you have to get accomplished this year for the business to be successful. And then you make tactical guidelines to get there, all the way down to management by objective, MBO, so what each department leader has to get accomplished to get the team to that, right? So, and dashboards and kind of what we do in business intelligence really helps measure all the tactics and measures departmental improvements and department performance. So imagine if you had one screen that you could look at and it tells you exactly how you're doing. Not only target to actual, but it allows you to see opportunities that you might not be aware of, and it tells you how you're measuring performance and making informed decisions. So there's the first dashboard of the night. We have plenty of these. What I usually like to do is distribute these and have people break up into teams and then have them tell me what 3 or 5 key takeaways are with each of those. I won't do that tonight, but I will tell you, we'll talk about this slide in particular later on, but this is the productivity of the manufacturing company of everybody that works there. And so, of course, with our clients, we always have to mock up data, but these are real numbers. But you'll see my data guy thought this was hilarious. So here I am down here, and ironically, there he is, right? But we'll talk about kind of keys to look and dashboards moving forward. So this is kind of the current state of business, right? And so most of you work with these products or know of these products, and these products are all good products on their own, but the problem is they're made by different vendors, and so they don't talk to each other, right? And we know, we at least have ideas of parts of things we want to manage and parts of things we want measurement around, but they still don't have a good way to get there, and so that's what we do. So what that environment leads you to what most companies use is kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? So a lot of people rely on industry knowledge, industry acumen, historical data. So people who have been entrenched in an industry for 20 years obviously have a good feel about the ebb and flow, right? And the tempo and the cadence of how business flows. But unfortunately, even managing like that, there are some things that even the human brain can't digest and comprehend. And so 75% of this whole gamut is stuff people don't use. So we talk about centralized data repositories. And so avoiding common pitfalls, a lot of folks that we go visit with will say, hey, I have a CRM, and the reporting from it's great. Say, I have Salesforce, and so we kind of manage our business by Salesforce pipelines, right? And that's dangerous because the only data you're looking at is your sales pipeline data, right? So you might have good funnel size, you might have good top line opportunities, but if you don't know how much margin those opportunities are generating, you could be walking yourself into a ditch, right? Many companies also build dashboards that are manually updated, and so they rely on somebody either running an Excel macro or sitting there and copying data. They're looking at a report and then they're translating it into Excel so they can visualize it. Right? Stop me if you've heard this story before. And then also, less is more, when you initially roll out your dashboards, a lot of people are trying to say, well, I need to worry about these 50 things at once. And we encourage people to take off smaller bites than that and start with 5 to 7, and then see once you feel like you have those under control, then start going. You're smiling because that's what your people do, right? Right. So, and we kind of talk about how data leads to knowledge leads to action, right? So this is a good time for you guys to consider what's important to you and where and how you gain the data. So who in here says that they're doing a good job of getting their data in their own business today? Nobody?
I mean, us.
Right.
Trick question.
So do a lot of you guys have an analyst or business intelligence or maybe even a controller, CFO, VP of sales, spend some time every week building out reports for you? How many people rely on reporting to run their business? How many folks in here actually use dashboards in their business? Perfect. So why dashboards? Well, it's a good question. So they provide visibility, but then part of the other thing is my very first day, so back to my military, my very first day on the base, I'm out throwing the football around with some enlisted guys, having a great time. And a colonel comes up to me and grabs me and says, you can't do that. And I said, well, why not? And he goes, because one day you might have to ask those airmen to go up and take that hill, and you don't want them saying, oh, shucks, come on, Cam, we're good buddies, right? Well, people in business do that too, right? People rely on, hey, I have a good relationship with my boss, so my performance may or may not really impact my ability to get a raise. And we all do that. Well, objectivity is in dashboards. Hey, yeah, we're great friends, but look what the dashboard's telling us. You're not doing a good job. Or we're great friends and you earned this raise because look what the dashboard tells us, right? You know, everybody here knows Peter Drucker. Yeah, that's all right. So if you can't measure, you can't improve it, or what gets managed gets measured. You've heard a lot of that stuff. So if you're not measuring stuff, there's no way you can manage it, right? And I presented to Son David, I presented to the Kansas City Manufacturing Network last week, or it was 2 weeks ago now. And one of the folks that we went out and visited with, they were erasing shift data. They had it all on a whiteboard over here. And so all the first shift numbers and metrics were here, and so they erased it when second shift came on. And then they erased it when third shift came on. And I said, so you're not keeping any type of historical record? And the guy said, no. And so I said at that presentation, I said, gosh, can you imagine running a business like that? And a guy got up and walked out of the presentation, and later on I found out it was his company. So, time savings, performance, I think a lot of times, we build a lot of gauge dials that show you daily target, month to date, year to date target, to make sure departments are on course, right? To make sure that you're churning enough widgets, to make sure that you're producing enough product. And lastly, when you do display employee performance, like that first slide, I hear people all the time that we do boards for, they'll just put screens up on factory floors, and people don't want to be down in the 13 or 14%, and so I'll have shift leaders that tell me, Kent, your boards have shamed people into performance, right? Well, we don't necessarily want shaming, but we want people to perform. And it might be that in that slide, and it's down there again, the Kent guide, I'm 13% productive, but it might be that you're calling me into too many meetings, right? Or you're calling a lot of those folks into too many meetings. Or we haven't been given the right training. It might also be that I need to be educated or get more training or need to be managed out. Those are all possibilities, but now all of a sudden you know, right? So just 3 different types of dashboards: operational, strategic, analytical. The strategic are the higher level ones. The executives watch those. Operational is team, and then your business analysts read all the analytic ones to show you kind of trends. So here we go, Excel. The reason that Excel has over 1 billion users, I'm convinced, is because everybody's managing their business with it, right? It is a cool tool, it's powerful, and it's good, it just has its limitations, right? And a lot of people also manage their company from their P&L or income statement and balance sheet. And the problem is, even my B2B CFO guy would agree, there's not a whole lot of stuff that's actionable on those, right? So you and I could meet and we could take apart your income statement and we could go your line item by expense, and we could probably find some savings in some areas, but that's not real actionable, right? So what we prescribe is using an approach like this. Okay, so when I walk into CFOs, and CFOs are usually our entry point into organizations, we talk about this, and we call this a Fitbit for our health. And yes, we have a trademark and copyright concern with that, and so publicly I won't admit I said that, but that's essentially what this is. And what it does is it measures your performance in all those areas, and there's up to 16, it depends on your NAICS code. But what we have, we built this for one of our clients. They have a subscription that has all of the tax returns for the past 10 years.